we're in a spiritual war. They're actually after your soul, and that's what they've done. Is to me is everyone's got their own kind of beliefs or thoughts or whatever it is on it, but yeah, I mean, they're after your soul, and they've got you in this prison planet, and they're not wanting you to escape this prison planet.
Hello, welcome to the Mark Attwood Show, Adventures in a Cosmic Suit. How's it going? You well? As we enter the month of May, interesting cloud formations here. How's the weather where you are? Hope it's good. Checkmating the Matrix. That's what we're kind of doing, isn't it? That's what we're trying to do. I hope you saw the interview I did with Richard Vobes the other day. He's got a great book coming out soon. I just posted it on my Telegram. He read a little excerpt from it. I think it's very important that if you have that creativity, you're producing content that helps people not only wake up, but gives remedies. Remedies is the big thing that I try to be focused on with this channel, as well as trying to wake a few people up. But remedies are the key. How do we go forward? And one of the things I've been talking about for a long time is, and it's a pain in the hole, isn't it? It's a pain. Nobody wants to be. If you wanted to be a lawyer, you'd have studied law, right? It's incredibly boring, but it's also how they've managed to trick us into being in the Matrix. The first con, of course, is the birth certificate, which is really a bond that creates a straw man. So when they write to you in capital letters, that's not you. They're assuming that you agree to represent that character, that corporation. And that's the beginning, really. All of their debt and nonsense and taxes are all completely unlawful. And I've interviewed a lot of people over the years. The one I've spoken to the most about this, and the one who's been the biggest help to me personally, is my friend Peter Wilson, who's joining me again. How you doing, Peter?
I'm doing very well, thank you very much. And how are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm really interested in catching up with you because it's constantly moving forward in terms of. Did you see that thing the other day? Was doing the rounds. It was about a week ago, and loads of people shared it with me and said, "Share this." And I think I did, but it was a case in America where it was allegedly proven that the birth certificate was fraudulent. Did you see that?
Yeah. I got sent it. Same thing. Loads of people sent it me, so I had a quick skeg through it. But I mean, we've went through that process years ago. I think you did as well, didn't you? Like filing the UCC 1-308, and it acts like a trust in itself, a private trust kind of thing. But I can't really truly see any remedy for anyone that's not registered in the United States. So it has helped. Inadvertently, having that paperwork has helped me. Just sort of like in a weird way, because when I'm trying to do other things, be it get into, say, a crypto network or something like that, because of being so private, I have no name and address. So when they say, well, give us this, and I'm like, oh, I've got no utility bills, I've got no council tax, I've got nothing to actually show them. So when I was just thinking, well, what am I going to do? And I thought, oh, hang on, I've got this UCC filing here, and it's got this name and address on from years ago, but it's also got US government paper headline. So I tried that, and it worked. I was like, oh wow. So that's worked for a few different offshore adventures, so that's been really good. But apart from that, I don't really see that that's going to really provide anything. I do believe, and I do see massive dents in the system though. And I do see many people now who are listening and following the path I'm showing them, that are having great headway against the system and literally kicking back and winning on a regular basis now. So, in a lot of ways, you could say that the system itself is starting to shake and crumble a bit, you know, so that's always good.
You know, you get these things that they go, share this now, and you have a look at it, and you're like, well, we've been talking about this for a long time, but sometimes these things are out there to muddy the waters, aren't they? To get people to go, oh God, this is brilliant, and then a nothing burger, and then they lose faith in information like this, and then it deflates them morally.
Yeah, well, and that's it. He's saying means like obfuscation. That's a lovely word, I think, you know, and that's what they actually put out there. Loads of obfuscation, make sure they muddy the waters, like you've just said. And then people are, oh, it's all bullshit. You know, I've heard all of this before, common law, blah, 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 and all of that, you know, and none of it works. And the thing is, what I do tend to find, I mean, when we actually specialize, and I don't mean that sort of like, you know, oh, I'm a specialist or anything, but when we concentrate, so look, just go straight down this path. Don't look at anything else. Follow along this line I'm going to show you. It's all to do with GDPR, which is General Data Protection Regulations. But when you're going down there, it's also mixed in with like Data Protection Act 2018, which is the kind of a similar thing, right? But it's all about your data, protecting your data. And people don't get why that is important. They say, oh, well, yeah, I want to be private, but why should I be using, you know, to fight somebody using the data processors? I don't get it. But to me, I'm sort of, look, there's more than one ways to skin a cat. I don't like that term, but it's like, you know, and go back to like Scarface, Al Capone, and they put him in prison, not for all the murders that he did, not for all the racketeering, but for not paying his tax or not filing a tax or whatever it was. So like, you know, they got him in a different way, but they still got it. So to me, it's like, well, I tell you what we're going to do is we're going to actually use their rules against them, and we're going to twist it around. We can actually get them by doing it completely different. Don't try and tell them I'm free, I'm a man, I'm not a person. Yeah, I know, and all of that is 100% true. I'm not knocking it whatsoever, but it's horses for courses. You need to find something, right, that works against them. And what I do find as well, unfortunately, is you've got the like a massive group, and be it like, I don't know what you would call it, like educated in a certain way that, you know, or is it just because they've been so far pushed indoctrination that what you get back is when you're trying to teach these people, and fair enough, it is boring, the law. I'm definitely not saying it's exciting to actually go through it. I spend hours and most of my day now is spent sitting in front of a computer reading legislation. You know, and you're jumping like that, go, oh, you know, but you've got to do it, because then how else are you going to find the little golden nuggets to put together, right? And it's all done in such a way as to hide it from you and me, right? They don't want you knowing what they've done to actually trick you into being the straw man that you just mentioned before, into actually saying, oh, yeah, well, that's me, when they shout, you know, Peter Wilson up there, but they're actually reading full capitals. So you're actually agreeing to it, like the school register, right? Why did they say your name out when they're looking at you? Well, you know I'm here, you're looking at me. But you need to actually say, yes, sir, or yes, miss, because you're actually agreeing to be the person. So it's all just trickery. But the biggest problem that I've got with other people is that they say, give me a template. Where's my template? So, okay, well, there's the template. And then they get questioned on it, and they can't answer any questions because they don't know what any of it means, because they've just took a template, and then they go around and slag you off and go, well, it doesn't work, that's a load of crap, that. No, it isn't. You're the one that doesn't work, because you haven't done the research to be able to stand and fight your corner when some smart-arsed solicitor asks a question, or, right, what we do get, a bored judge who wants to go home, who knows what the normal routine is, and you've upset the apple cart by coming in with a different angle, and all he wants to do is to stamp the rubber stamp on there, go home, drink a bottle of wine, and go to bed. And you've upset him, right? So he asks you some questions, and you can't answer them, and he went, you don't know what you're talking about, and kick the case out. When we've got so many people that were coming in and doing the education, studying what I'm showing them is their rules, the other side, if you want to call it that, showing the other side's rules, to use those rules against them, and then they can't argue back, or they can argue back, but if you actually prove they're wrong by showing them their own rules, they've actually shot themselves in the foot. but it's education. You must educate yourself on their system. You know, not that, you know, don't say, well, I want to know law rather than legal. I want lawful and legal. Perfect. And that's exactly what I want. But you have to know both sides, right?
Yeah.
You need to know your enemy better than you know your friends.
Yeah.
That's the way.
My favorite thing that you've ever taught me is private hat, public hat. And I told this story before, but I'll tell it again. You know, when I toured America, the police came round to my house and told my son that I was going to go to prison for not paying a speeding fine. And when I got back, he said, why are you risking going to prison when you've got 5 kids, Dad, over a speeding fine? And I was like, good point. You know, and that private hat, public hat, you got to pick your battles, right? So a lot of people don't immerse themselves in this unless they are faced with problems or faced with issues. You know, I was talking to Richard Vobes the other day about when the bailiffs came to his house and he actually experienced what it's like to have unlawful demands on you for money when they actually come to your door. And he told a great story about that. In fact, he just read an excerpt from his book this morning on YouTube, which everybody should go and have a look at, which describes this circumstance. When people are in that circumstance, that's when it really tests them, and then they have to go and look for it. And I remember I and Gary made a course last year called Personal, Financial and Sovereign Mastery. I'll put the link below this video because you can go onto it anytime. But when we did this course, should be you at the top there because you did most of the work. When we did this course, I remember, I think it was about 4 weeks in, and we had a Q&A and somebody said, what do I tell my accountant? And we were like, you don't tell your accountant anything. It's in the private. And it illustrated to me how difficult it's been for the work that you've been doing, because you have to go through the process. You have to really inhabit the ideas that you are talking about. You can't just read it in a template and send that off, because I've done that myself. And then I'm like, oh, if they speak to me about it, I'm a bit fucked. And then I'll ring you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true as well. But I mean, the thing is, though, we just had this guy, you know, lovely guy and everything like that. And you know, he says, oh, can I do this, do this, do this. So I did it all for him. And, you know, I'm not being funny, but I said, look, I said, you know, you seem nice guy, that you're having problems. I did it all free. There you go, blah, blah. I'm not going to give his story because, you know, he had a lot of issues like health and everything and family. It was horrible. So I went, look, just do this. And this is for you. And I actually helped him. And then right at the very end, I went, so get ready to lay your argument to them. He went, I can't do that. What do you mean? He says, well, I'm not capable of arguing with anybody like that. I said, it's not an argument, you know, you're not going to get angry. I says, what it means by argument is a legal argument. You have to explain the situation. He went, no, I can't do it. I thought, well, I said, look, and I done paperwork for him. I said, try and read that with a little bit of passion then. And he couldn't do it. And the judge asked him questions. He couldn't answer them because, again, it was just purely a template thing, really. And the templates were perfect. I mean, all along their own rules, but you've got to, when they say to you, well, what does that word mean? You've got to be able to tell them. When they say, well, what do you mean under that section there? You've got to be able to tell them, you know, when you're actually saying, well, look, I'm telling you now that we need to have a deed of assignment because it says there under the Law of Property Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1989, Section 1, that you have to have it. And they say, well, tell me what that says. And they go, well, I don't know, it's just written on this bit of paper. You know, it falls to pieces, or doesn't it? And that's when they see the holes in your actual story, your defense or your attack, depends on how you've gone into the court, either defending against them trying to put a CCJ on you, or you're actually trying to get a CCJ against the debt collectors. You know, you've got to be able to tell them why, you know, and if you spout off the actual acts and the statutes, which is in the public, and you have to do it in the public. Don't try and beat a debt collector in the private. You know, it's extremely difficult. Go in, use the public, their rules, because they're breaching them every single time they speak to you. They know it, right? But they don't want to go and kind of advertise it, but they just make so many problems for themselves if you know what the rules are. But you've got to know them and be able to tell the judge when he asks you. And that's where, you know, if they know you, if they get the feeling you don't know, you're finished.
Yeah, but it takes I mean, it's really a spiritual thing, and that's one of the reasons why they have these buildings they call courts, and they have the ship's deck, and they have the robes, and they have the, and I know that's not always the case in magistrates courts, but you know, they have this pomp and say they have the guards, the police, you know, to create the fear so that you can't think straight, so that you want to be represented by one of their minions, otherwise known as a solicitor or a lawyer, who's always working on their behalf, not yours, regardless of what they say to you. So you're kind of in the shit from the beginning. It's a difficult. I mean, I've told this story before, but I'll tell it again in case anybody's never seen me talking to Peter. But when I first stopped paying my TV license in the UK, I knew they were going to come. So I rehearsed a line, I looked into it, I researched it, but I was still shaking when they came to the door, and I held my phone up like this, and I said, I'm going to record this for YouTube. And I told the guy, said, "Are you Mr. Attwood?" And I knew that I shouldn't answer the question, because if I did, I was entering a contract and agreeing to represent my straw man. So I didn't do that. But I was shaking when I was doing it. And this is over 10 years ago. I remember it well. And then I rehearsed this line. I refute your implied right of entrance to this property. Please leave. And then he left. And I was like, oh my God, it works. And I just stood my ground. But he was a minion at the end of a chain he didn't even know. But he knew to leave, though, which I thought that's the thing that interests me. Do they get trained to know what lawful terms can be used against them?
I don't know if they get trained, but maybe what they'll get is a bit used to it. So if somebody knows, right, that they have the right, and what it is I remove your implied rights of access, because they have an implied right, which means that they haven't been given the right of access, but it's implied. So if you remove their implied rights of access, then they can't enter. You know, so that you've said exactly the correct words, and then they have no right to be there, so they have to leave. So if it's happened to them, you know, a couple of times, they've maybe went back and asked somebody, maybe in the legal department, what does that mean? And they probably tell them, well, you'll have to leave then. You know, you can give them a notice, a bit of paper, but then you have to leave. You know,
so this guy got on the phone. He was in the car, and I got a bit confident. I went out to him, and I stood there, and he was on the phone, and then he opens the window. And I said, and I said to him, and if I did agree to be the person that you're saying that I am, which I'm not agreeing to whatsoever, the reason I wouldn't pay a TV license is because the BBC broke the 2005 Anti-Terrorism Act, section sub 16, by showing Building 7 go down on 9/11 20 minutes before it actually fell. And the guy just looked at me and went, I'm not getting anything out of you today, am I? I went, no. Drove off.
Yeah, that's it. It's a way to handle it.
And that was a guy called Tony, and my friend Matt Campbell, that went through that process, and that's what inspired me to do that back then. But it's interesting, like when I was talking to Richard, it's just fresh in my memory. He was saying that he knew that he had, when he was having the bailiffs come to him, he felt like, even at the time, even though he was unwell, he knew it was a process he had to go through, because his job, he felt divinely guided by the whole thing. And that's what I mean by the spiritual aspects of this, because that fear that rises in you when you step across the line of the matrix, it's like that picture on the top of my website, which comes from the 1700s, of the man peering outside of the firmament to see it's all beautiful and colorful outside there and horrible inside here. It's very, very much a spiritual process. Have you found that? Do you agree with that?
100%. Everything is, you know, and it's like you said it many, many times, you know, we're in a spiritual war. They're actually after your soul. And that's what they've done. Is to me, is everyone's got their own kind of beliefs or thoughts or whatever it is on it. But yeah, I mean, they're after your soul, and they've got you in this prison planet, and they're not wanting you to escape this prison planet. Some people might call it the plantation, but I truly think, you know, I'm not saying what shape it is or anything, but I truly, you know, think that it's just that we've all been put here in a prison planet. Wherever your ancestors came from, they moved them all here and stuck them here, which is why I 100% believe that the people that you've got working in places like courts and councils, they're not from the same place as us. You know, that's why they have no empathy. That's why we would say, oh, well, it's an NPC. They've got no soul. Is that right? Or is it because they're from a different place and they've actually just been put here and a prison planet as well? So it's like prison gangs. So it's really just a huge, great big prison. We're all selected our own prison gang. And just look at it. You see the movies and everything about prison gangs. There's always violence and murder and theft. That's what it's like. It is the same. So to me, I think we're all just in a prison and they're trying to control it. It's a construct and they're after your soul. And that's how whoever built the construct, that's what they feed on. They feed on your soul. They feed on your fear. That's why they're always trying to actually, create fear in everyone so that you've got all this fear all the time. And they tell you about it, right? Monsters Inc. Come on, let's go scare the kids to death, and we bet all the energy and we keep our realm going. They're telling you, and then laughing at you because you go and take your kids to watch it. Now be scared of the cupboard, kids, because there's a monster coming out.
I posted the link from Star Trek: The Next Generation this morning on Twitter about an episode where Captain Janeway is faced with this guy who looks like her dad, and he's like, "You must," and she's dying, and it's like, "You must come with me into the Matrix, and this is a utopia. You'll love it there." And she's like, "Fuck off! I'm not going in." And then he reveals his true self and says, "I will come back and feed off you later." I mean, they hide it. It's always hidden in plain sight, and it's been ever thus. But breaking out of the Matrix, I think your work is a big part of that. But people that have been talking about this. I mean, I don't know if you heard about David Lester Strait dying recently. Did you hear about him?
Oh, no, I did not.
You know, you know who he is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, he did amazing stuff in the last 5 years, at least, talking about this stuff from an American perspective. But then, like on April the 6th, his wife, Bonnie Strait, said that David has passed away. And, here it is on Twitter there. And I do wonder if, whether, I don't know whether people are being taken off the chessboard or whether they're literally being taken out by the bad guys. What do you think? Because he was really having an effect in America, at least, on people waking up to this and standing in their truth and their sovereignty.
But see, the thing is, like, everybody, well, not everybody, but I've seen lots of different arguments on either side saying, well, he was wrong on what he was doing and his paperwork wasn't correct. That's not really the point, is it? I mean, what he was doing,
that happens all the time. You get attacked, I get attacked. I mean, they come at you in real life.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it's just a joke, but two reasons as well. It's a double reason, I believe. First of all, if you're upsetting their cash cow, right? They're all making loads of money out of doing one thing, and then you actually give people an alternative and say, well, actually, you don't have to do that. Why don't you? You don't have to pay. Like we showed people. I actually did a whole series on the SAR using GDPR. Actually, that event that we were both at last year, WTF. The weekend, whatever festival, and I actually went on stage and I showed them literally how to do SCR 1, 2, 3, actually to get it into a court and to turn the tables on the debt collectors. And I said, just follow this system, go on my YouTube channel, get it all up there. It's all up there for free. You can edit the templates and you can go and do it, learn how to do it. Right. I mean, I've got people that try to attack me all the time because they charge £200 and £300 for one letter. Right. When I've just showed them how to do it for nothing. So you've got to expect a bit of backlash from the people who are just like, you've hurt their cash cow. But, on the other side as well, I think you also get the attacks coming in because like it's all infiltrated and have these, what they call it, truth community that it's basically run by the government, and they've got all the spies and all of their like tentacles going out there. And these people give up loads of obfuscation, confuse everyone, like make sure that should I do that or should I do that? Well, which one? So they're all opposite, they're all arguing with each other. It's all set up for a reason. And again, that's a spiritual path. Make sure you stick on the straight and narrow path. Don't go wandering off on all of the weird and wonderful avenues that they offer there. And, and they'll never do it for free is the thing. Like I'm saying, I've upset quite a lot of people's cash cows, so I get it in the back all the time. But I love it. I think it's brilliant. Come on, attack me more, you wankers. I'll just take your bankroll away from you and stop you taking everybody's money even more.
Well, it's a double-edged sword, because, you know, on one hand you want to give everything away for free, but on the other hand, you do this work and it becomes a full-time job, and you've still got to live. And on the other side of things, when people get things for nothing, they don't always value it, do they?
Oh, no. And I'm definitely not saying, you know, there shouldn't be an exchange, because there should always be a fair exchange for everything, you know. And these people that say everything should be for free, well, how's that then? That doesn't work, because how are you ever going to eat? You know, like, you know, I know people say, well, we shouldn't be paying for electric and gas, and maybe. All right, that sounds good to me. That, you know, sounds like a plan. You know, you know, when you look at the buildings that you've actually got in these big cities, or even in the little towns, in where my gym is, in the next town along, you look at some of the buildings and you think, hang on a second, we didn't build that, right? You know, so you know that these were places to generate healing and electricity and power and stuff. So it probably was all for free at one stage. But, you know, everybody on equity, and that's a lot of what I do is equity. And what I've done is I've developed equity built into the GDPR system. So you combine equity. Now, what is equity? A lot of people say, well, that's what the value is in my house. Yeah, that's one explanation. But equity is a separate base of laws as well. So we're in a common law jurisdiction. All right. Anywhere that you've got that's had an influence from England, basically. And I'm not English. Don't care what anyone says. Right. Whatever accent it is, I'm not English.
What are you?
Scottish.
Are you?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. So it's on my passport. No,
Scottish.
Aye. Yeah, but it needs to be independent as well, by the way. Get rid of them parasites from London. And that's all it is. It's just that is the cabal, by the way. That is, you know, the Crown Corporation is the actual people that create the construct, and the Crown Corporation is the sort of like image that they've actually got to control the populace of the prison planet. Lost my train of thought now. Sorry, got me wandering off everywhere.
I interrupted you with the Scottish thing, because when you said you weren't English, I was like, oh, I'm going to learn something here. He's going to say that he's Arcturian or something. I didn't expect Scottish. Sorry to interrupt the show, but I'm here in my car on a beautiful sunny day in lovely Ireland. And I just wanted to say to regular viewers of my show, you'll know that over the last 5 years, I've tested probably over 1,000 different health products and modalities to try to get us through the COVID psyop, but also to help us enhance our longevity towards health sovereignty. Now, out of all the things that I've tested, there are a number of things that I use on a daily basis. And for the last 3 years, you will never see me without one of these on the back of my neck. I can't actually, if you can see it there. It's on the back of my neck. This is a Lifewave X39 patch. Well, this is actually not a patch. This is the sleeve that it comes in. This is an X39 patch, okay? This thing, you just stick on the back of your neck. And what it does is it reflects the light coming from inside your body back inside your body. So it reflects the light coming out of you back into you, but at a frequency that achieves a certain thing. They have a large range of patches that do different things, from helping you sleep better, to helping you recover from pain or from exercise pain. This one in particular, the X39, is my standard thing that I wear every day. And the reason for that is because this stimulates the production inside your body of copper peptides. And copper peptides in turn stimulate stem cells. Now, I am 56 this year, and I've got more energy than my teenage kids who I'm on the way to pick up. Why is that? Well, structured clean water is part of that. A mainly carnivore diet is part of that. I do have access to things like hyperbaric oxygen and red light therapy at our healing center at live5dhealth.com. But actually, I don't use them very often because I'm a workaholic. But these patches have not left my neck since I first discovered them in 2022. And I'm convinced that my eyesight is better, my teeth are stronger, my arthritis has disappeared, my hair is thicker and longer. Look, there's a ponytail here. sex drive is better. So many things are better, and I'm convinced it's because of these. If you're not convinced by me, go to theMarkAttwoodShow.com and search under Lifewave or stem cells. You'll see that I've done numerous interviews with numerous people giving their testimonies about Lifewave patches from all over the world. So go and have a look at those if you're not convinced. I'm going to put some QR codes on the screen. One is for the Lifewave patches themselves, which you can go and get online immediately. They are not the cheapest thing in the world. I do think they're actually less than a cup of coffee a day if you wore one a day, but and I understand that doesn't stretch everybody's budget, but they also represent an amazing sovereign business opportunity. You can get paid for recommending these if you try the patches and you sign up to the other QR code, which is the business opportunity page. That will put you in touch with Cheryl. Cheryl works with me in the States, and she will talk you through the process and show you how to do it. All you've got to do is share a link and give your testimony. This is the way we bypass Google, we bypass press, national TV, mainstream media to grow this business, which is currently $1 billion business. It has grown leaps and bounds since 2020 because of the need of people like us who are awake, who want to sustain themselves and get through this time period so that we can get through to ascension in one piece. That's what it's all about. Freeze the video if you need to get onto the QR codes. Go to those links now. That's all for now. I hope you enjoy this message and you enjoy Lifewave, and I'll see you soon. Enjoy the show. Back to me in the studio.
Yeah, that's it. Not as glamorous as what you thought then, but yeah.
No, I think you were going towards the GDPR thing, which is what I want to focus on. But I'm just going to tell everybody if you want to learn this stuff, then the Sovereign Mastery course that I showed you is a really good starting place. But then if you want to continue to learn, Pete has got a thing called Checkmate the Matrix, which I'll put the link below, but it's also on the screen. So the GDPR side of it is really powerful, isn't it? Let's just explain GDPR first, because I remember that came in about 2016, 2017 as a European Union data protection thing. I remember it because there were in Ireland, there was somebody from the government coming to teach business owners about it and why it was so important. So it is a cabal thing, but like me wanting to keep going back on YouTube, even though they keep censoring me and deleting my channels, you use the enemy's weapons against them, right? So that, do you want to explain that, how that works?
Yeah, exactly. And you know what it is? I think that GDPR, right, and it's all about data, protecting data. The more that I've studied it and went into it and just keep going over and over and over it, and then trying to use it on loads of different issues, right? The more look at it, I think they've designed this to protect them.
Yeah.
Not thinking we can fucking read. Right? But really though, it's just that when the more I went into it, I was like, wow, this is just so powerful. Because a lot of people don't get it. I mean, I just like banned somebody on one of the channels there for like slagging off like the SAR series because he was attacking other people. Thought, well, hang on, have an opinion, but don't be nasty, right? Yeah. So boot, get out. So, and he was saying, well, the SAR, which means a subject access request, right? And that's something that you're allowed to ask for or request. That's what it means under GDPR Article 15. So if you can go on to any Google, whatever search engine you want to use, and you just put in Article 15 GDPR, what does it mean? And it'll tell you. You can go and request all of the data that any corporation holds on you and are processing on you. So, I mean, why would that be important? Well, many different reasons for many different areas. Let's talk about one of the biggest ones is debt. Okay, so a huge industry that has kind of developed over the years is the debt industry and debt purchasing. But that in itself is a misnomer because they never purchase debt. They only purchase the data.
I mean, I'm going through this myself. I'm not going to go into my own personal stuff, but a company has purchased what they think is a debt from somebody else that purchased it, from somebody else that purchased it, from somebody else that generated it 15 years ago, and they're still coming after me. And they never purchased anything apart from my name and details.
There you go, the details. So what they do is they buy block data. And we had an insider and they did a video. I don't know if it's available on like YouTube. It was private when we seen it, like a few people, and they showed us the website. And the easiest way to describe it is like an eBay for debt. So we've got these companies, right? The debt companies, and they will go and buy a whole block of data. Say, well, look, there's a block of £1 million. And if a 10 grand debt, they're going to pay 200 quid. This is for good, like newest debt that's come on the market, because it goes down in price. Like yours, for instance, they'll be selling for about like, £2.50 now, right?
Yeah.
Because it's older and older and older. So it goes down and down and down. But I mean, 10 grand, it'll cost them, if it's brand new debt, right? As in it's just been went into default. So they've sold the data. It'll be about £200. But they still want the 10 grand though.
Yeah, and they put interest on it.
Well, they can do, but like a lot of them don't do it.
Yeah,
they'll take it once it's actually been taken off the books of the bank. We'll call it that, right? And they put it into. I mean, we'll not go on about like how the credit's created. We've went over it. You haven't loaned any money. You didn't borrow anything. The bank didn't give you jack shit, right? But anyway. So they go on to actually pass the data on via big blocks. They don't just pass yours on. There will be a block, say £1 million. They'll pay like their 2%, right? And then they get it divided up into geographical areas, send off all of the notice of assignment. And this is where the actual sort of like veil comes down, and they try to, again, obfuscate and confuse people using the word assignment. And, because they don't get it. And it's really funny when you talk to these debt collectors. What happens is you send off an SER, subject access request, which you're fully allowed to do. And what you're going to say is, well, I want you to give me all of the data that, and this is the very, very special word here, relates to me. Okay. Now, and it's very clear. And if you go in and you look exactly, and you can even go onto some of these like chat GPT things, and you can ask for these questions. Don't be fooled though, because they make stuff up, right?
Well, Martin Geddes has been posting a lot recently about using AI to fight the system in the UK. If you don't know, Martin is, go and look him up, and look him up on X, and you'll see it. He's told the story. So that's interesting that you brought that up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm nothing wrong with it. I'm saying, but what we've actually developed our own, so that we've actually built it only using legislation. So we've got an AI bot that can't go off and wander off to the internet and find some mysterious thing that was actually from a movie. So it's not real. You know what I mean? Which happens. So if it goes off onto the internet, it can come back with some very weird and wonderful things. I've seen it make things up completely. Yeah, that's not true. And then when you ask it and say, oh, sorry, what are you saying sorry for? You're an AI. Don't say sorry to me. It's weird. But anyway, you can ask for all the data that they've got on you or pertains to you, right? It doesn't have to be your name and address. And this is what they try and get away with. So any debt being passed, and they don't buy the debt, we know that. But if there were, then debt in the UK or common law countries, right, Ireland as well, wherever you are, right, it is classed as property. It is an item of property. It is a thing. So anything property under the Law of Property Act 1925 or equivalent, very similar in Ireland, right, there has to be passed from one party to the other via a deed. Has to be a deed. Okay, so it's called a deed of assignment when it comes to an actual debt. Now, what you'll get coming back from the debt collectors when you give the SER and you say, I need all of my data, and they say you can't have that because it hasn't got your data on, which is one of the stupidest things I've ever heard in my life. Well, hang on. So you're saying you've bought a debt belongs to me. You want me to give you 10 grand, but it hasn't got my name and address on, so you don't know whose it is. So you're guessing it's mine. Right. But, that's how stupid it is. Or they'll come, oh, no, it's private agreement. Oh, no, it's sensitive information. You're not allowed to say that. And all this nonsense to come back with, But we've went even deeper into it. I don't want to give too many of my secrets away, but there's also a set of steps that anyone dealing with financial data must go through, and they don't do it because it's too expensive, right? So there's a background checks. It's very, let's call it a risk assessment, okay? So if you're going onto a building site, you need to go and put a roof on, you have to have a risk assessment, or you're not allowed to send the guys up on the ladders with the hard hats, right? That makes sense, right? I mean, when I was working on building sites, I used to swing off Tarzan ropes and everything to get to the roof. So there wasn't no health and safety. They didn't know what it meant. You know, stop throwing bricks at your mate. That was like the health and safety inspection. But you know, so they have to do these steps before they start processing your data, and they never do that. So you can, if you know what it is, right? I'm not going to go and tell everybody too much here, right? All the juicy stuff, right? That you can actually file that against them as well. We can get them on so many breaches of data. They're breaching GDPR, DPA 2018, and they're breaching the FCA, which means the Financial Conduct Authority. Very serious. They're breaching loads of regulations for that, as well as if it's consumer debt, which is what we're dealing with, credit cards, bank loans, catalogs. They're also breaching the Consumer Credit Act as well, CCA. So they know it as well, by the way, but they're just not going to tell you, and they hope you don't know. But if you can send the SCR under the banner of GDPR, don't argue the debt. You're not interested, right? Don't try and tell them, oh, don't owe that. Doesn't matter. They've actually breached your debt, your data. Now, if you can prove it and show them that they've breached the data, then you can actually sue them. And what happens when you're actually going in to sue them, and we're doing it on a basis of GDPR and equity. So what is equity, and what's that got to do with debt? It's got nothing to do with debt, but it's to do with fairness, transparency, and justice. You cannot be unfair when you're dealing in commerce. Can't do it. And if you actually rely on equity, which is that everyone must have heard of the equitable maxims, having clean hands, well, they never come with clean hands. And you can only get equity if you go in clean hands. So if you've actually laid an equitable case against the debt collector, as well as the breaches of the GDPR, you've literally taken a sledgehammer to a walnut and crushed them. And we've got wins after wins after wins. Like recently, just one guy there. Well, sorry, one lady. It was like £5,205 she won. 5,000 was the actual damages for distress, anxiety, inconvenience of having to deal with it all, postage, and you know, all of the research, because you can put in for that. Plus, she got the 205 back, which was what she had to pay to file the actual case. So she got all that back from PRA Group. Lovely group of people.
Well,
so
who are they?
It's a debt collector, PRA Group. Everyone will know them.
Right. So if somebody, so does this just apply in the UK or just in Europe? Is this a global thing?
Well, if you look at GDPR, that is covering all of Europe. So anyone that's in like Ireland, for instance, or because it's slightly different, and even in Scotland it's slightly different, but you're still covered under the GDPR. So you can use that anywhere in Europe. But also equity on any common law jurisdiction country you're in, equity will relate, because like we split the law. There's two sections of law. There's common law, and that's what it's called, a common law jurisdiction. Wherever there's a common law jurisdiction, you will have separate equity jurisdiction as well. And equity, when the two clash, like over the same matter, equity will always go above common law and will beat common law all the time, which is the Earl of Oxford case. So if anyone wants to go and research that one as well, look up the Earl of Oxford case under equity and why equity actually trumps common law. And that's where it comes from. Quite an old one, 16 something. Can't remember the exact date off the top of my head. And hence now the more modern version is we have the Senior Courts Act. I think it's 1989, I think. But whatever it is, it's definitely the Senior Courts Act, whatever year it is. And that now tells you that whenever common law and equity clash, equity will always be the higher one. So yeah, well, there's the Earl of Oxford's case.
That's Wikipedia. It was in, which obviously we know is propaganda, but things get put up on it that can be useful. 1615, a foundational case for the common law world that held equitable principle, taking precedence over the common law.
Yeah, and it has done ever since there, which is why we always have now the Chancery Court, coming from the Lord Chancellor, who was the conscience of the king, right? That's what they were called, the conscience. So, and that's what we look at whenever we're dealing with the debt collectors. I mean, you can do it with banks as well, or you can do it with councils, right? And it's their unconscionable behavior that we're actually using. So their behavior. And I mean, I've just done a video there, you know, like when we were at court last week, and the behavior of the council and the magistrates, and it's just ridiculous. It's honestly ridiculous.
Is it the council? Is it the magistrates? Or is it the people who represent them that believe that they're in the right that makes them behave that way? Which is it?
Well, you know, I think the main reason why they behave that way, right, as I said it before, is because they're not the same as us. They're from a different realm that have been sent onto this prison planet, and they're in a different prison gang, and they're actually attacking us through this system of the council and the council tax.
And they need consent. That's the reason why they send them and have this system, right?
Well, yeah, that's true as well. That is true. But I do think that their behavior is so outrageous, though. I'll try and put it in a way that kind of makes sense to me, right?
Yeah.
Now, the Local Government Finance Act 1992, this is what kind of sets up council tax. Local Government Finance Act 1992. Terribly boring, long-winded like thing, but what it done is it gave what they called special statutory powers to councils and magistrates courts when dealing with council tax matters. So that's why council tax, even though it is a civil claim, will always go to a magistrates court, which is normally a criminal court. But the special statutory powers keeps it within the magistrates court solely for this, nothing else. And what it does is, I'll show you the book completely. And this is where a lot of people get it wrong when they start fighting council tax. They say, oh, well, what about civil procedures rules? What about the court's rules? The Local Government Finance Act has allowed them to completely supersede CPR. This whole book, look at the bloody size of it, right? All the rules and regulations of how you actually can sue and be sued to protect, defend. Doesn't take it into account. The actual Local Government Finance Act 1992 supersedes it. So they don't have to do anything what a normal debt collector would have to do if they wanted to take you to court to actually get their money, right? That's why they're allowed to do what they're allowed to do. However, there's so many other things that they do. And that's the power. Because they've had this tiny little power, I think what they've done is they've actually misconstrued it and given themselves such a hard on, right, that they think, I have a superpower, right? So I can do anything I want. So this court case we were at, right, and the woman come in and I was like, you know, this guy set up a private trust, done it on his own, set up his own private trust. And what he done is he had the trustees that had nothing to do with the building, by the way, as trustees on there, and it was on the land registry written down that this name as, and it on the land registry says as trustee of blah 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 private trust. And I said to this woman in the court against, but that's not the liable party. You've used the wrong name. You can't give it to someone who's not. And it says, this is your Local Government Finance Act. You have to be a resident. You have to be an owner. You have to be one of these 6 points, at least one of them. She's none of them. She went, I don't care.
Yeah.
You know, I said, but also this is just down as a trustee. She doesn't live there, never lived there. She's not an owner, like in an equitable sense. She's only a legal owner on the land registry because she's acting in her fiduciary capacity as a fiduciary duty to protect the actual trust. I mean, that went, it was like, I have, her words, I have jurisdiction over everything, right? I have jurisdiction over people, over companies, even over trusts. I went, do you know what jurisdiction means? And she just glared at me and she went, I'm not arguing with you anymore. Get out. It's like, get out. You told me to come in. Like, you know, it's just absolutely nuts. And they've got no idea. So blinkered. But I do think it's because they've been explained to them by somebody. You've got this special statutory power, which completely overrides like civil procedure rules. You don't have to worry about that. And it's all held within a magistrate's court. And I think the magistrates probably get told that about council tax. And I think that's why they think they can just go, there's 3,000 applications for a liability order, right? There's only 2 people turned up, but we're going to give them all a liability order. And they don't, without seeing anyone, no due process, which doesn't matter if you've got Local Government Finance Act, you still need due process. You still need your Human Rights Act there to a fair hearing, no matter what it is. So they just breach all of that. And even on the Magistrates Courts Act, what says that, 1984? There's so many bloody dates, I keep getting mixed up. But on the Magistrates Courts Act, they still have to sign it all. And this is the big thing, you know, Leighton versus Bristow and Suter, where they didn't have any paperwork and he proved it, got damages off them, right? And they're saying, well, the council gave me a letter. So you went round somebody's house to threaten them to take their property from them because the council gave you a letter. There's got nothing from a court saying that they've had a hearing and it's signed. Council gave me a letter, you know, and he obviously won his case. I'm trying to get a hold of him, actually. I have a chat with him soon, but and that's it. If they haven't got the authority to act because of that, it doesn't matter if you've got special statutory powers. We have your kryptonite for their special powers, right? And it's the GDPR. So you send them an SER. If they don't reply with compliance, i.e. giving you everything that relates to you, right? So if they're talking about something over here, which hasn't got your name and address, but it relates to your case, you still should get to see it. Even if it's a nasty email telling you you're a racist twat, right? What do I mean by that? Well, you know, Nigel Farage, he got given every single internal document, every argument and everything when he sent an SER to the bank when they closed down his account, right? The posh bank where all the rich people go.
Coots.
So that's the one. Yeah, I think they missed the N out somewhere, but never mind. But, you know,
what counts?
Yeah. But, you know, and he got that all. So they were actually discussing, they felt he was a racist and everything like that. But he had to get all them. Obviously, he's got more, you know, kind of clout than we have. So they followed the rule of the actual law and gave him all of the data. They don't give us it, but that's how we know if you've got the right information, then we can sue them for breach. And the ignorance and arrogance of them shoots themselves in the foot every time. It's bloody brilliant, really, when you actually use, it's like Aikido, you use their strength against them. Exactly. It's brilliant.
I'll just tell you this story because there was a time when a solicitor stole money from me, right? And the reason he stole it is because NatWest Bank, I had to close a company down, and because of the financial crisis in 2009, and the NatWest Bank wrote to us and said, "Oh, you owe us this much money." I can't remember how much it was, but then they added a load of money to it. So I asked them for the contract. I want to see the contract that we signed, and they forged the signature and a date and sent it back. And my wife at the time said, "Well, that's not me, because at that time I can prove that I was on a beach riding a horse in another country. So there's no way I signed that." So we employed this solicitor, went through the solicitor's ombudsman, or whatever, the solicitor's regulatory authority, the SRA. What a strange acronym that is. And found this solicitor, had a meeting with him. He said he specialized in all this. Took NatWest to he would ring me and say, "Right, I'm at the steps of the court." They love using these phrases, don't they? "I'm at the steps of the court, and we can get an agreement, or we can continue," and blah, blah, blah. And I think twice I said, "You keep taking it. I'm not paying this money." And then on the third time, the stress of it got so high that I agreed to make an agreement with them. And then the agreement was that I would have to pay this solicitor an amount of money per month, and then he would pay them. And that was the end of it. 6 months later, I got a CCJ. Turns out the solicitor had not paid them anything. And then they got the CCJ because they're all in it together, right? So that company was called Lake Jackson, right? They're in Norwich. And I was like, I'd been in this situation where I didn't know people like you. So I didn't know how to. So what I did know was marketing and reputation. So what I did is I set up I said to this guy, "You owe me that money. You caused this problem. Get rid of the seat." And he refused. And he said, no, I'm not doing that. And he refused to all of it. And that's when I realized the solicitors are in a big club and you and me ain't in it. And I was like, well, I need to get this money out of him. So I set up a website called latejacksonstolemymoney.co.uk. And I wrote a letter and I published it on the internet. And then when anybody types in his company name, that came up. But I told him I was going to do it 2 weeks before I did it. And then he threatened to sue me. And I said, but it's all true. There's all the documented evidence. That's what you said. That's what happened. And he was threatening. And at that point, I had nothing to lose. I didn't give a shit. And then the day came, you type in his company's name. There was this website. And funnily enough, the money appeared in my account the next day. and that's actually a really powerful way of, you know, if you have been wronged in some way. This is what the good thing about social media. You know, if a company is screwing you, you can just put it all over the internet. You know, then that's their worst nightmare, because that. So there's a lot of different approaches you can take, but you know, this one's beautiful, using something as simple as GDPR. Now, there's going to be people watching this in the States, in Australia. What can they do? Can they use the same principles?
Yeah, I mean, they can't use GDPR because that's, like you've just said before, it's a European based thing covering, I mean, it's European though, right? So like you call the United Kingdom, right? That is like part of Europe in a sense. So you're still covered by it, Brexit or whatever you want, all that nonsense. But, you know, but Canada, and I know Canada because I've been dealing with people there, they've got very strong data protection regulations, and so has the United States as well. You know, I mean, the debt collectors there, they're the same, just as vile and disgusting as they have here.
Demons.
But exactly, but if the rules there can block them straight away, you know, especially if they've been what they class as debt purchasing, and because it's a common law country, they still need a deed. And that's how you can find it. They need a deed to transfer a piece of property, it's called intangible property, right? As in, it's not a bricks and mortar. You can't bang your head on the door, but it's still a thing. And a thing is there as a piece of property, has to be transferred by a deed in a common law jurisdiction.
They haven't got the deed. They've got nothing.
No, we've got no legal standing.
Simple as that.
And these other debt collectors, which still comes under GDPR, but you can, because you send the request off for them, the ones that say, but I haven't got a deed because I've never bought the debt. I'm just acting as an agent. So you have to give me the money now because we're the agents of Barclays Bank, right? That is what you would call a third party interloper. They've got no legal standing whatsoever. Now they'll say, oh no, it says in your contract that you've signed that the bank Barclays can pass it on to third party. It may say that in there. However, if you look at the common law principle of the privity of contract, it would have to state in that contract who that was going to be, that third party. And no way have they wrote in there that it's going to be whatever name of a debt collector that they're going to pass it on to. It just says we're allowed to pass it on, a very vague actual clause in any loan contract, but it doesn't cover it. So unless they are specifically named in a contract, then they have no right to enforce a clause on that contract or on another party that's in that contract. Plus, they have no deed of assignment, which is how you've passed on a debt, so they shouldn't be talking to you. Plus, they'll all say, I have a legitimate interest. There's a little bit of a leak here I'll give you. Well, if they're saying that they've got a legitimate interest, then they should have done a legitimate interest assessment. I need to see your legitimate interest assessment. And I also need to see your DPIA, which is your data protection impact assessment, right? Which you must do because this is a high risk scenario, i.e. it's financial. Any financial transaction that you're going to do on data transfer is high risk. Doesn't matter if it's a £50 debt, it's still high risk. So therefore, you have to do a DPIA as well. Show me it. And they'll go, what's one of them? Right? Or they say, oh, we've done it. Well, fair enough. Show me it. Oh, it's got none of your data in it. It relates to you. Because it relates to you, you must see what they've done. All right? Same simple thing. And it's so easy. And that is, again, if they won't show you it, it's unconscionable behavior. So then you can sue them for a breach of data, the way that they've actually handled it. even if they haven't, like, you know, if they're just acting as an agent, send them a cease and desist. You've got no contract with me. You're actually not named in the contract at all. So you're breaching privity of contract. You've got no deed of assignment. Therefore, you've got no chose in action. A chose in action is something you're allowed to actually enforce in court. And they haven't got one, so they can't do it in their own name, so they can go and do one. So send them a cease and desist. And if they continue after the cease and desist, then they're actually breaching as well. So you can sue them again. So there's lots of different avenues if you can actually do the study and really push forward and get the education using their rules. Call it law if you want, but it's their rules that they created to try and keep you away from them, to protect their data from you.
It's brilliant, and I love the idea of using their rules against them. It's got sweet irony. But we're near the end of an hour, and I'm running out of battery. So you guys watching this, get yourself educated. Follow the links below the video. I'll do more videos with Peter as well, because it always puts me back into that mindset that I sometimes leave because I'm busy with other things. But thank God you're there doing the work. Cheers, Peter.
No, you're more than welcome.
Yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. See you soon.
Are you looking for amazing retreats in Ireland?
Let us help you become the best version of you in a matter of days.
Ireland is a wonderful place to retreat from the world and find some inner peace.
It is a deeply historic and spiritual country, and nothing can inspire the soul more than the stunning west of Ireland.
We have chosen the historic town of Boyle in County Roscommon to build our state-of-the-art clinic, Live5D Health, nestled along the beautiful Boyle River.
Our centre combines a range of therapies that cannot be found under one roof anywhere else in Ireland.
These therapies need to be experienced on a daily basis over a number of days to truly feel the incredible, powerful effects.
So we have put together a fabulous package for people from across the world who are looking to truly reinvigorate their health and mental well-being. Full details of itineraries, dates and costs can be found when you join our retreats email waiting list on live5dhealth.com. Our total wellness retreats use the stunning Frybrook House, only a 2-minute walk across the bridge from our centre, as your base for a range of daily therapies in our EMF protected and energetically harmonious centre.
Our activities and therapies include a wide range of truly healthy breakfast, lunch and dinner options provided by Frybrook House and Boyle's best chefs, under our strict guidance on the provenance of ingredients and their nutritional value.
A daily morning yoga session.
Red light therapy in the most advanced red light bed in Ireland to activate the mitochondria in your cells, help weight loss, reverse aging, stimulate collagen and relax every cell.
Pulsed electromagnetic field therapy to harmonize your electromagnetic field, strengthen your cell walls, and stimulate circulation and healing.
Hyperbaric oxygen therapy or exercise with oxygen therapy to detoxify and feed your cells with this essential healing nutrient on a level you've never experienced before.
A session in our luxury sauna overlooking the Boyle River.
The world's cleanest water steam room. Our water is vigorously cleaned and harmonized with nature.
Immersive light and sound therapies, including the only Roxiva and soundbed combination in Ireland, aided by the only holographic sound system in Ireland. Has to be experienced to be believed.
Quantum healing in our Orinoco healing pod. Profound spiritual experiences await you here, especially if you are an experienced meditator, but also amazing if you are not.
Daily hydrogen and Brown's gas sessions to help your body rejuvenate itself with the fundamental building blocks of the universe.
Provision of clean, structured and mineralized hydrogen water for you to consume throughout the retreat, with the inclusion of a hamper containing our best supplements.
A final light dinner with our founders, Mark Attwood and Gary Keeley, and the Live5D team at a stunning Irish castle.
These treatments are all well-established foundations, especially if you are chronically ill
or just want to enhance your being and give your body and soul the best treat you could possibly give it.
There is a lot of information on our website, about all of them, so we do encourage you to look around and do your own research on the benefits before applying to come on a retreat with us.
They are also cumulative. That is, if you experience them over multiple days, the effects are enhanced.
Of course, we're not only offering these incredible therapies on our retreats.
We want you to have a fully immersive Irish experience, as we are nestled in and amongst some of the most incredible sacred sites and landscapes on Earth.
Many know of Ireland's mystical past, being connected to Egypt, Atlantis and Lemuria.
And our centre is only a few minutes from the wild Atlantic coast,
Queen Maev's tomb,
the mystical and powerful Carrickeel,
and the caves of Kesh, among many other places of great interest.
We will make excursions to many of these on your visit, as well as a choice from some of these local delights.
A seaweed bath in the coastal town of Inishgrone. Built in 1912, these traditional seaweed baths are famous for their high concentration of iodine, which relieves all sorts of ailments from arthritis to rheumatism.
A seaside sauna and sea swim at Ross's Point. Our sauna is fabulous, but we will also take you to the charming and picturesque town of Ross's Point, where you will be able to swim safely in the sea, set against the spectacular backdrop of Benbulben.
A stunning canoe trip along the rivers of County Sligo. Very gentle exercise where you will see how the rivers of Ireland can be like the rivers of Africa, with the almost guaranteed inclusion of kingfishers.
A flight in a light aircraft across the township of Boyle, where you will experience the local lakes and mountains from a unique perspective.
A boat tour of Lough Key, our local lake which features multiple islands, a castle in the lake frequented by W.B. Yeats, an alleged interdimensional portal, and many tales of UFO sightings. Trips to the local organic markets and farms, a traditional Irish music evening in a thatched pub, a lunch boat tour on the mighty River Shannon. Our retreats run throughout the seasons of the year and are strictly limited in numbers.
So please fill out the form on live5dhealth.com today and get on the waiting list.
Are you spiritually protected? Are you wearing the armor of God? Are you prepared against the principalities of darkness that currently wreak havoc in our world? Spiritual warfare is a very real thing. Weapons of Mass Protection is the explosive and practical 5-star best-selling book from authors Abby Wynn and Mark Attwood, who both agree that humanity is in the midst of the biggest spiritual awakening in human history. If you feel like things ain't what they seem, if you feel you are under attack, get your weapons ready now. Weapons of Mass Protection. Practical tools for spiritual warfare. Out now.